Now, why I want to start by talking about the game, the transition about left back makes sense to me because while one game against Real Sociedad for Alejandro Balde doesn't, prove whether or not over the course of a season that it comes down to whether Barca should bring another left back. But, after this game, I was thinking that seeing Balde in the preseason and seeing him even in that game against Real Sociedad, he is just fine to be the backup to Jordi Alba. It seems like even at 18, what I've been saying about him for the last few seasons as he was injured, and I was worried about his trajectory, but now that he's healthy again, he looks just fine as a backup and a young backup at 18 years old. He is basically a left winger, right? So if Xavi's going to usually go with 3 center backs or 2 center backs and have Ronald Araujo be tucking in as that right center back or right back, whatever you want to call that role, and then Balde is basically playing on the left wing, that can suit him just fine. But the issue for Balde, I don't think is whether or not he could be the backup, but more line, how much does Xavi actually trust Jordi Alba to be the actual starter week in and week out and eat up 70 to 80% of the minutes? Actually, last year, he ate up 90% of the minutes at that position. If Xavi believes that Alba's kind of falling off a cliff, and even if people say, oh, he's dedicated to him and his salary is too much, you have to pay him. Yes. But if Xavi sees that he's falling off a cliff in training, in preseason, because he's not looked good so far, and we're now 6-7 games into seeing him at the start of the season, then arguably the club is bringing in Alonso to basically split the job, to be 50-50, to be a 100% competition for Jordi Alba, because again, that sample size is growing as to how much Xavi might actually trust Alba in this situation. So I think if they bring in a backup like Alonso, looking again at that performance that Balde put on against Real Sociedad, it says a lot more, I think, about Alba's showings or where he projects this season than it does about Balde.
I think it's way too early to judge on how Alba's season is going to be. First of all,
Sure.
like what you said is true. Balde played as a winger. He did not replace Jordi Alba at all. When we saw the starting lineup, it seemed pretty clear that Ferran Torres is going to start as left forward after 3 months of inactivity. Oh wow, he's starting with Balde instead of Alba. But the surprise was even bigger because Ferran Torres was the attacking midfielder and Balde was the left winger. The preseason, I don't know. I've spent the summer here in Barcelona where it is so hot and humid that you can hardly breathe. And those have also been the conditions in the United States where they've played most of the preseason. So we had the match against Rayo at between 10 o'clock and midnight, and even in the second half, the players needed a water break. That's how hot it has been. So it's very difficult to judge Jordi Alba, who runs quite a lot and is asked to sprint a lot. I love Balde's energy, but my fundamental criticism of whenever I saw him play for Barça B has not changed. Like when he has the ball, he does not know what to do with it. And this was true throughout the game. It was even true on the assist that he gave Lewandowski because it was an attempted shot. It was not a pass. That was backlay. Like if you watch him play that ball from behind, you see that there was backlift. He was shooting it with power, and he kind of like scuffed his shot, which made for really a perfect pass.
Yeah,
for Lewandowski.
And what we learned from Lewandowski, I think, in this game too, is that you don't necessarily need to give him a perfect pass. You can give him a semi-perfect pass, and Lewandowski can still put the ball in the back of the net. He does many, many times. And
he's Lewandowski. Yeah,
exactly. So I think the next place we go with this in this direction, we've already been kind of hinting and tiptoeing around the formation is, this 4-1 victory, a comprehensive, really good result, right? But the narrative was that there were things that were missing, there were things that were lacking, especially in the first 60 minutes of the game. And then all of a sudden the subs come in, and do with a snap of our fingers, right? So we could talk about Ansu, or we could talk about the first half in the formation. So, Levon, which direction would you like to go? Would you like to do the Ferran Torres, the right wing situation with Dembele in front of Araujo and the space that was left in behind? Or do you want to go with the positive here and that, Ansu came on as a sub along with Rafinha and Barcelona had the attacking options to change a game, regardless of how poorly or how disorganized they seem to be in the first 60 minutes. So yeah, you want a positive or negative? I think that's again the only two paths you have for this game.
No, I'm going to go a different path. What I thought was very interesting about this was not so much the starting formation, but the fact that Xavi chose two players who were far from the best options for their roles. So he chose a left winger who never knows what to do with the ball, who is terrible when he gets into the final third, and uh, and has to make assists. Although he has looked better this preseason, and he chose somebody at the top of the midfield diamond, who for all his qualities, he has good movement, he has good decision making, he can score, but he does not have a lot of creativity or finesse. So at the top of the diamond, right behind Lewandowski, you want somebody with finesse. You want somebody who can play a through ball, who does not need a lot of space to surprise his opponents and maybe create space for his own shots when he has passed the ball. And for 60 minutes, we saw the team struggle. And what were the two changes that Xavi made? He took off Balde for an actual winger, and he took off Ferran Torres, who position-wise was pretty much the 10 on that pitch, and replaced him with the kid who's wearing the number 10. So what happened? We had a winger who was at the base of the next three goals. We had a number 10 who gave 2 assists within 2 minutes and scored the winner. So the problem was not the formation. The problem was the personnel, and the initial choices that Xavi made were very strange. Now I like it when coaches make strange choices. Sometimes they work out, sometimes they don't. Even when the reasons why they wouldn't work out were predictable, I still like it a lot more when coaches surprise me than when 9 times out of 10 I can kind of guess how we're going to line up and how we're going to play.
Yeah, I mean, let me jump in on Ferran Torres real quick. I think with Torres, I think based on the narrative that's already been set for him, unfortunately, in last spring, not in Catalonia, but I think with we'll say the global media have already decided on Ferran Torres. But to be thrown back kind of into the fire, if you will, without much of a preseason, without much time with Lewandowski, and being asked to play in the role that he did, I think that clearly he looked like he wasn't not even match fit, but up to the speed of a match. He wasn't ready for that moment, if you will. And so I find myself very easily being apologetic of him after this one game, because I go, well, yeah, he didn't really have a preseason with anybody else. And it's not like, while Lewandowski is one of the best at his position, it doesn't necessarily always make that easier. Sometimes when the guy like Lewandowski is doing and playing a different position than Ferran Torres in Xavi's system has had, which is he's not yet played in Xavi's system with a typical number 9. And you could argue even at Man City that Ferran Torres didn't really truly have that player either. So to get down those those details and to figure out how to play on the back foot, and I would say too in that midfield, like I think the next person we talk about is Frenkie de Jong, because it was really a box, right? In that 3-4-3, even in the first half, before in the second half as well, with Gavi and Pedri. And, I had to watch it on a second time to really understand where Gavi and Pedri were in this whole thing. Because to me, I'll start with a positive in that Pedri, I want to keep repeating it because we're going to always repeat it. It's going to be a broken record, but Pedri is just so multifaceted. It's not even good, but he's just so multifaceted and versatile that when Xavi, especially when the subs came on and Xavi said, hey, Pedri, you're basically going to drop in deep, almost be the third center back like Busquets, where he's supposed to stand at times and pick up the ball from deep, or you're going to be in a double pivot with De Jong. You're going to cover for him when he's trying to get forward. And when we need you to push forward, you're going to have to substitute in with Gabi, or when Kessie came on, he's going to be take on some of that defensive role, Pedri, if you choose to get forward in that way. And so for Pedri, there was so much that he was doing, and it almost, not say lets Gabi off the hook a little bit, but Gabi wasn't truly comfortable, I think, dropping in and being in a double pivot, if you will, with De Jong. But instead, it was Pedri who was doing that job when called upon. And for Gabi, it was a lot of pushing forward, trying to help and press. But as I said before, with Torres not really there, and there was just too much space on those wings. Again, Balde trying to cover that whole left wing, and on the other side with the right wing situation, Dembele would either drop too deep, where he was now receiving the ball too deep and not being able to really attack forward and do what he does best, or Araujo was covering that entire right side and having to come from the middle of the field where he was covering for, again, Eric Garcia. It is really a domino, right? I can almost, as you see, I'm kind of creating the maze and looping around the field, because Eric Garcia, who had not say trouble, I don't think he had trouble dealing with Isak. I thought he was good enough, but still, you want that extra help from Christensen over to that left side with Eric Garcia. Again, Balde's playing on the wing. So that drags Araujo over a little bit. That drags Dembele in a little bit deeper. That means your press is not as fervent moving forward, meaning Gabi is not optimally being used. And then again, Ferran Torres, where is he on the press? He would seem to be a step slow to that as well. And then you just have, again, Pedri cleaning so much up. And that's the positive, that even when it seems like spatially things weren't working, Pedri's just always there for you. Now, in the case of De Jong, I think, Levon, you're always so good at this. I think there were people that were too hard on De Jong, but I also don't find a way to be very positive about his performance. And I think the truth might be somewhere in the middle there.
No, this was one of his worst matches.
Okay.
No.
Okay. Yeah. Then,
No,
I mean, then let's lean into that sentiment. Sure. I agree with you.
This was dreadful. This was dreadful. And it started with the goal that he concedes. And first of all, I was upset about how he conceded it, because
sure.
when they took the ball from him, there was no need to dribble. He had Pedri at 7 yards with a wide open line, while two people were coming at him, but instead he starts like dawdling on the ball, turning around, trying to make one of those evasive dribbles for no reason at all. He could have just bypassed those two people pressing him and given the ball to Pedri. Then when they take the ball from him, instead of reacting and defending and closing down the space, his first reaction is to complain to the referee. And this is something that we've always seen from De Jong. When a very specific action on the pitch does not go his way, he either complains to the referee if it's a foul, or if it's a poor pass, he wastes time throwing his arms up in frustration with a poor pass while the play continues. And if you actually rewatch this goal, and not only does he lose the ball, but if after losing the ball he sprints back, he would have been in time to actually clear the ball off the line. And the rest of the game, or at least the first 60 minutes, because the last 30 minutes he was fine, to be honest. He improved a lot. But the first 60 minutes, it was just a lot of the same. He needs to pass the ball. That spell that he had last season, when he really started to improve, is because he stopped dribbling all the time, and he actually started just like receiving, taking one or two touches, and passing it.
I really feel like that game against Napoli was when he turned the corner. I remember that one in particular, that he was really good in that Napoli game. But yeah, it seems like that is not who he.
And I understand if his mind is not right. I understand that he's had a horrible summer. But if this is the type of season that he's going to have, then the season will be worse than the summer. Because I don't mind if players make mistakes. I don't mind if we make blunders and they cost us points. But what bothers me about the mistake, and besides the way that he reacted to it, is that it is just so extremely typical of the flaw of Frenkie de Jong at Barcelona that we have seen for the last 3 seasons. From the beginning, what did Frenkie need to improve? To pass the ball quickly, to recognize the players around him and pass it. So in 3 years, he still hasn't got it. I understand. I understand why. Like a lot of players who are physically very gifted from a very young age, it has become extremely easy throughout his whole career for Frenkie de Jong to just keep the ball and dribble past 2 or 3 or 4 players. So he never really needed to understand the passing game like other midfielders needed. But at this level, after 3 years at Barcelona, no, this is not possible.
Yeah, I mean, and then again, that leaves the club in its standstill with, I mean, again, talking about potential sanctions coming down next season, and with his salary that you and I have talked about ad nauseum, we're not going to do that again right now, that Barcelona are stuck in this situation with Frenkie de Jong moving forward. And so throw out those ideas of Bernardo Silva, because as long as Frenkie de Jong is making what he's making, that's a pipe dream. That's a joke. And that'll come up a lot tomorrow. I think for the friendly, that'll be the main topic. We'll try to analyze what happens in that game, but I doubt that matters much. But one of the guys that I don't think is going to start and play much in that game, if he does, is going to be in third gear or second gear, if you will, is Ansu Fati, which on the reverse side of what we saw from Frenkie de Jong, we saw from Ansu what he's capable of. And what made Ansu, I think, so special in that game, and what the big change between he and Rafinha coming in for Balde and for Ferran Torres is just, again, space, and it's help, and it's the gravity, I think would be the word, that those two players attract. Rafinha is such a danger from long range that when he's coming horizontal across that box, he attracts that second defender, or the defensive midfielder. Zubimendi had no idea who he should be marking. Should be marking Ansu, who was coming up through the middle at that point, with Dembele around the outside, right? Should be helping to the out for Dembele, especially on that nice finish by Dembele on that goal that Ansu laid off on the back heel. Again, no one is guarding Dembele because Real Sociedad just completely collapsed upon Ansu. And what Ansu is that again, Ferran Torres is not, is just gravity, that he's a threat in the box. He's a threat out wide. And so often, unlike Ferran, who was trying to come through the middle and, work these 1-2s that weren't working, Ansu would start his runs from out wide, and Dembele would start in a deeper position even. And then either there was the overlap, or Ansu would then come inside, and with or without the ball, he retracted 2 or 3 because there was a ball being returned right to him. He's technically good enough to handle that. And then again, you also have Robert Lewandowski you have to worry about. That's how Robert Lewandowski got the second goal as well, is the gravity of Ansu. And then Rafinha, again, cutting across with those pre-assists, is a danger as well. And I think for Rafinha, I'm watching his movement and I'm saying, well, this is what Barcelona wanted from Coutinho all that time, where he's setting up his positioning, coming across from the wing, and an ability to just kind of pop up in the middle of the field as well, where even if he's not getting the ball, he's attracting attention from, especially I believe it was the Lewandowski from Ansu goal, where Rafinha is kind of being occupied by Mikel Moreno, and that's one of the players for Real Sociedad that you want to make sure his eyes are not on the ball or not on the player that's making that third man run, which is Lewandowski in that situation. So to TLDR, as in TLDR, too long didn't read. Barcelona's attackers, when Ansu comes on the field, I wasn't sure how they were going to have Ansu and Rafinha and Dembele and Lewandowski together. But this was kind of the opening the Pandora's box that Xavi had in his back pocket. We didn't see it all in preseason. So then when he needed it, he was able to flip that switch. And that's what happened. That when you have 4 players that are really, 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 really high level attackers, right? I mean, arguably all 4 of them are top 50, 40. Give me a number here, 30, 40, 50 in the world, all 4 of them, as far as attackers in world football. And you have those guys to flip that switch. That can get you points in the Liga even when you aren't your best. And that's why Barcelona, again, 4-1 might be deceiving, but it also isn't, because a number of times this season, those 4 and their quality are going to bail Barcelona out, and that's okay. Like Barcelona, it's okay for them to have individual glory. Messi did it a lot of times. Ronaldinho did it a lot of times. Rivaldo did it a bunch of times. individual glory happens at Barcelona. Individual talent can get results for Barca, and that trophy will count just the same if they get the 3 points over and over again that way.
I mean,
you don't want to rely on it though, of course. Like you want a team that plays good, that plays well.
No. But I'm not so sure if it is all down to individual moments,
Sure.
because of course talent makes a difference, and here again we are not necessarily comparing individual talent of the people who were subbed out and the people who were subbed in. I do believe that the people who are subbed in are more talented, but also the people who were on the pitch to begin with were not playing in a role or position that they are particularly suited for.
Sure.
So the moment that you replace them with players that are more talented and you give them a role that that they are suited for, then it's not necessarily just an individual play that makes the difference. Everything comes together. Regarding Ansu first, and then I have another comment for you, which people outside of Spain might not have caught on to. What I think was very interesting about Ansu is the same excellent movement and decision making in the box that led to 2 assists and 1 goal. Were also on display outside of the box. So what we're seeing here is a player who came on for 30 minutes and he basically played a perfect match. He played a perfect match.
Yeah.
All over the pitch. Because he also dropped back at times, because he very much took over that role that Ferran attempted to play. I do not understand how a 19-year-old who has been injured for most of the last 2 seasons can become such a complete player, even if it's just for 30 minutes, can have such a beautiful game, and whose understanding of the game has seen, on the basis of last match, seems to have grown so much. Like, how is this possible? We always talk about, maybe Nico Gonzalez, he needs to be loaned out, because if he plays like 25 matches, then he will learn a lot and he will develop a lot. And this is not false. But Ansu Fati, like, when did he learn this? He played how many matches last season?
18 to 20, something like that.
18 to 20?
Something like that.
But a lot of them were just like
appearances, not like actual 90 minutes or 60 minutes. Yeah.
Appearances.
Yeah.
So for him to be gone for so long and to come back like that. So first he keeps like being injured, and then he comes back and he scores. And when he comes back and he scores within 15 minutes, of course we know he's special. I always say that he's special, but we think he's special because he scores. But he's more special than just the goals.
Yeah, for sure.
Because his understanding of the game is up there with those very rare talents. So yeah, it's very exciting. I just hope the guy stays fit.
That's what it is. Like,
yeah.
I mean, I will say about Ansu, like it's fitness is the one and only thing. So for those already asking, why is he not starting? When will he be starting? I don't think he needs to, because again, that's why Barcelona spent all that money on Rafinha. You don't need Ansu and Dembele and Lewandowski to be your 3 starters every time with Ferran Torres rotating, and who knows about Aubameyang in Memphis. But Rafinha and Dembele and Lewandowski, I would guess that those 3 will start the most games this season, but that doesn't mean that Ansu hasn't made the next Lewandowski, we'll say, quote unquote, biggest impact, if you will, on games, game in and game out. Yeah,
agreed. And he's going to be like Messi was when Ronaldinho was still the star
mhm.
at the club. And when he was not just a star, but like was still like the star pretty much in his prime
Yeah. Totally
uh,
the same. But
at the club because Ansu needs that protection. So
Oh, I want
the
to
other
add,
thing
well,
here,
before we move on, I want to say one more thing about Ansu, that I saw some things too about Ansu, and I know the argument about the number 10 thing is going to keep being brought up as it was in the preseason when Ansu falters or when he doesn't, or when it seems like he's not being special, when he's not completely lighting our eyes on fire every single time he touches the field. Those things about the number 10, and we talked about protecting him, right? At his age, he still needs to be protected from media, from pressure, from all these different things. But the two things I hold on to when I did all the research about the history of the number 10 at Barca, he's not, if you link the number 10 shirt to Messi, if that's what you're going to do, then of course there's tremendous impossible pressure. It's not going to happen. But if the number 10 is just not only a jersey as it was for a long time, number 10 means something because of Maradona, whatever. But if it's just the number and it just means an important player for Barcelona, which is what Ansu is, that's one. But part two of that is, even if we're putting the pressure of the number 10 on Ansu, I think his, again, ability to just be special in limited minutes. I mean, he's got a goal or assist every like 64 minutes, and he's got a goal every 93 minutes or something in the last year and a half. Again, that's even returning from injury, that's even being hurt. He scores basically every time, every 90 minutes or so that he's on the field, and he scores. So I think he's easily able to handle the pressure, if there is any, of the number 10 shirt. But again, I also question whether or not, it truly matters how much pressure that is. It's just a very popular player, a player that's going to sell jerseys, and a player that you're telling the rest of the world, hey, this kid is special. And this kid is special. It's very much like Pedri's number 8 shirt at this point, that it's going to be special. Number 8 for Barcelona, it meant something. It meant something then. It means something now. But I don't think the pressure is on Pedri either, because he's already good enough to handle the shirt in the way that Ansu is just fine to handle a shirt, because it is just a jersey number.
one of the best things about the palancas is precisely the fact that now you have Ansu understanding that he's a very special 19-year-old playing alongside Lewandowski, Dembele, Ferran Torres, and Rafinha, and maybe still Alba. So it takes that pressure off of him. If we do not win anything this season, nobody is going to blame Ansu Fati.
Right.
No, because we just spent an incredible amount of money on other players, two of whom are forward. One is a superstar, and the other is somebody coming into his prime. So I don't think that there's a lot of pressure on him. I think he's going to have fun. He looks comfortable. He looks happy. So no, my main comment is just that what has most impressed me is his understanding of the game in all of its facets. Was on full display, and again, the same things that he did right in the box that were decisive were things that he was doing right all over the pitch. And wow,